GB 819 Substack exclusive. Section, Professional Managerial Class. Title, Debate or Ignore the PMC. Subtitle, Is it better to not read the room at all and stampede over the Professional Managerial Class instead of a suit and tie debate? Body, when deciding on how to counter-signal the PMC, there are two main approaches. The first approach is to acknowledge the positions of the PMC and attempt to debate those positions in an academic way, in which their positions are systematically deconstructed and also exposed as being the positions of that class. This involves more of a high-brow and suit and tie approach, where the goal is to win converts and to appear somewhat respectable in the eyes of mainstream liberals as opposed to being seen as people who never read the room. A good example of a community that uses this approach is the subreddit r/stupidpoll, which stands for Stupid Identity Politics. Putting identity politics in front of class is the main political distortion of the PMC. When the PMC can get away with it, it also promotes hawkish foreign policy and Zionism. When the PMC decides to infiltrate a socialist community or design a false flag, it knows it cannot openly promote hawkish views but will support other positions such as elevating identity politics and also ultra-left deviations, such as Trotskyism and arguing that all policing is against the working class, even if a murderer or child molester is arrested. RevLeft is a dead forum that used to be PMC run, and the subreddits outside of r/stupidpoll are PMC run. One forum that is in better shape is the forum politicsforum.org. Off the internet, there are signs that things are better. Look at the Revolutionary Communist Party and Progressive Labour Party. The Revcoms are described as a Bob Avakian cult, but on the issue of identity politics and its relevance to class, they are not quite as class reductionist as I am but are in pretty good shape. The exception may be the Occupy movement, that appeared class-focused at first, but then got divided by identity politics and the so-called progressive stack. However, that movement is hardly relevant at all today. The first approach, however, is not the only approach. The other approach is to not read the room at all and simply storm the scene as a bunch of people who read about class conflict and had no interest in the PMC's polite society or liberalism/neoliberalism to begin with. A good example of this is the gangster Bolshevism movement, pioneered by yours truly. To describe the phenomena, see this response to a Substack note that involved an exchange with Robert Stark. Where gangster Bolshevism was unique is that it didn't really even consider PMC liberalism and try to appear as an alternative to it that puts class in front of feminism and PMC critiques of white privilege, but still tries to engage the PMC in a structured debate and polishes off the appearance. Instead, it proceeded as if PMC liberalism didn't even exist and as if a bunch of politically incorrect people read Marx's theories and decided to class hate instead of race hate and Jew hate, but stayed politically incorrect. In other words, we did not read the room at all. We didn't even consider liberal points of view and try to reason with them. And it took the position that internet trolling and insubordination to polite society was the proper resistance, since outright revolution isn't possible immediately. It is obvious that my more recent activism has been consumed more by the first approach, but you can see from my pioneering of the gangster Bolshevism clique that I started out not reading the room at all and bringing political incorrectness and aggression and raw class analysis over identity politics right into Marxism. The fate of the gangster Bolshevik movement was that it was hit hard by drug overdoses. Ed Brayman and Alex Hakkinen unfortunately are not with us anymore. After that, because the movement had lost clear momentum, the community basically split from under me due to infighting. Breckenridge Elkins, Paul Bingham, continued to attack me for lacking ambition and being a minimalist, despite the fact that he cleans horse shoes for a living, but pretends to run a successful Trump merchandise shop. Yaqub Israel, Andrew White, would join in when Breck was attacking but was not the ringleader. I set up a gangster Bolshevism Telegram group and now have a channel. Yaqub did join the group, indicating that he had tired of Breck's antics, but then he dropped off. Harleem Vention, Al Stankford, got into a fight with Gavin Lockhart over a Chinese Communist Party that I care nothing about. However, other members of the chat backed AL's position and some had issues with that party. I was forced to eject Gavin from the group because otherwise the chat just was not functional. At the same time, I hesitated to do this and did not take a position at all. I made it clear that I was neutral. However, Al was gone. The other figure who dropped off was Jonathan Lee Riches, who took his Trump support beyond just trolling liberals and did not jump off the Trump train when everyone else realized Trump was garbage. He chose Trump support, and then he also created a YouTube channel, JLR Investigates. Breck does have 2 YouTube channels as well, Here and Here. Nobody takes Breck's channels seriously. I plan to write on the topic after I knock out a few other topics beforehand. The reason I have engaged in a more professional and highbrow style and have gravitated to debating the PMC and its fake socialists who put identity politics in front of class instead of just going full throttle with the other approach, not reading the room at all, through gangster Bolshevism, is that the movement essentially imploded. However, expect that after I lay out an assault on the PMC through multiple articles, I will return to the approach of rejecting political correctness and treating the PMC and its ID poll supporting sycophants as if they do not even exist, but I will do it with different supporters behind me, or I will do it by myself, leading by example, setting the pace and paving the way instead of following the pack's direction. GB 819 of X and Substack.